Hello and welcome to another episode of Apple a Day. Today I'm going to do something a little different. I'm reviewing a new task management tool that just hit the market. This tool claims to be different as it is aimed at creative users. It's called XPHuddle. Now, full disclosure, some friends of mine were part of the team that worked on this, so as a favor to them, I figured I would do an honest review and a walkthrough. So if you're a solo graphic designer or a part of a full-blown agency, then you're the target market for XPHuddle. XPHuddle is browser-based, so it works on Macs and PCs. So what does this software do that's different from its competitors? Let's take a look at their website and find out. So I've got XPHuddle.com open and I'm just scrolling through the main selling points. So here's the big 3 points. It'll do project management. It also replaces asset storage, so there's no need for third-party storage like Dropbox. And the third selling point is built-in proofing and markup, which replaces third-party proofing services. Scrolling a bit more, it also offers version control of files. So in those situations where a customer says, "I like the first one better," you can easily revert back to that version. And down here, there's some more selling points. I think the biggest one that appeals to me is no more multiple tools. That's right, XPHuddle does everything a designer or an agency needs for organization, all under one hood. So obviously, XPHuddle is aimed at this niche market made up of creative users and agencies. And that's kind of why I agreed to review it, since most creatives do use Macs. So let's take it for a test drive and see how it actually works in the real world. Setting up a new account is pretty easy, and it's absolutely free with no credit card required. A free account has no restrictions and it can be used for 14 days. So I'll click on Try for Free on the top right and enter my email address, and then click on the Sign Up button. I'll enter in my full name and a password. I'll type in Apple a Day for the organization. I'll click on the Policy checkbox, and then hit the Next button. You'll be sent a verification code which you'll need in order to complete the setup. You usually get the email within a few seconds. I already got mine, so I'll paste it in, and then I'll click on Create Workspace, and that's all there is to it. Setup is super easy. Once you create your workspace, you do need to log in again for security purposes. I'm not going to worry about a passkey right now. I'll continue without one. So after a few seconds, here's your workspace. And like I already said, you can see up top that we have 14 days left in our free trial. So this is your dashboard, and most of these panels have something to do with project information. XPHuddle's main working component is called a project. A project can be anything as simple as a list of tasks or as complex as a full ad campaign containing multiple creative designs and assets. On this dashboard, we can see a bird's eye view of existing projects. Now, of course, I don't have any since I've just created the account. Over on the left, we can see that XPHuddle supports teams. Teams would most likely consist of a graphic artist, an art director, and maybe a salesperson. Since I'm logging in as a one-man show, I won't be making use of teams for this review. However, a default team is automatically created, which contains all users, which of course in this case would just be one user, which is me. It also supports clients, which obviously would be your customers. So to really test out this system and dive into some of the details, we should probably create a project. I'll do that now. On the top right is a New Project button. Clicking on that brings up this window. It needs a project name. Now, where I live, we're in the middle of a film festival at the time of this recording. So let's say I'm the ad agency used to produce all of the printed material for this festival. So I'll enter in 2025 Film Festival Brochure as the project name. And for the instructions, I'll just type in Use 2024's brochure as a template. I'll click on Next, and I'm presented with the configuration panel. Here, I need to enter in the client, the team, and the assignee. I also need to enter in some dates and something called deliverables. Let's start with client. I'll click on the plus button to add a new client. For the name, I'll enter in WIF for the Windsor International Film Festival. To add a contact method, such as the name, phone number, and email, I can click on Create New. I'll do that now, and I'll just make up a name, Bob Smith. I won't bother with the label. For type, I'll choose Phone, and then choose Cellular as the phone type, and I'll just plug in a dummy number. And that's it. I'll save it, and you can see that the WIF client now has a contact. I'll press Save again, and we're back to the project configuration window. So moving on, you can see that a team has already been created and selected. This is the default team that I mentioned earlier, which includes all members. Right now, all members is just me. Next is the assignment option, which defaults to me. If I were part of a team with multiple members, I would be forced to make a selection from this drop-down menu. Next is the priority. I'll leave that at normal. And then we have the start date. Let's assume I plan on starting this on Monday, so I'll choose November 3rd. And I'll need a month to work on it, so for the deadline, I'll choose November 30th. Next is deliverables. A deliverable in XPHuddle is a finished product which will be sent to the client or perhaps to a printer. In this case, I only need one deliverable, which will be the final PDF of this brochure. So I'll leave this at 1. If you won't be needing any deliverables, you can simply uncheck this option. I'm not going to bother entering in any tags, so now I'm ready to move to the next panel. I'll click on Next. This panel lets you enter in specific tasks. If you like, you can skip this because you can always add tasks after the project is created. I will just add one task though to show you how it works. I'll click on Create New. I'll type in Collect Movie Posters from Producers. I don't need to worry about setting an assignment. I'll pick a deadline of November 5th, and then click on Save Changes. And then select Next to go to the last panel. Now this last panel is used more for teams with multiple members. Each stage of a project can have its own deadline. Here you can assign a member of your team to be responsible for each stage. Here's a simple explanation of the different stages. In progress means the work has started. Review means that we've sent the PDF deliverable to the client for proofing. Ready means the deliverable has been approved and is ready to be sent to the printer or newspaper or posted on social media or wherever it needs to go to be published. And the last stage is complete, and this simply means that the project is all wrapped up. So I'm only going to enter a deadline for the initial review, which will be the first date that I'm showing the client, which I hope will be a finished product with no changes requested. I'll pick November 20th. I'll click on Save Changes, and then I'm asked if I want to open this project. If I don't open it, I'll just be taken back to the dashboard, which will show me all the projects. But I do want to open it, so I'll click on Yes. So now XPHuddle has opened this project, and you can see the project title on the top left. If I look around, I can see the instructions I entered and the task I created. On the left, I can see the client info. And over on the right, I have something called Discussions. Now, this won't normally be used in a single user environment unless I want to add some notes or reminders for myself. I'll add one now. Don't mess this up! Then I'll click on Send Message, and now we have that message saved. Down here we have project files and deliverables. These are currently empty because we haven't uploaded anything yet. So project files will contain all of your assets used to create this brochure. So I'll need things like movie posters, logos, photos, etc. And ultimately, I'll also add the file used to create the brochure, whether it be an InDesign document or Pages or Affinity Publisher. It doesn't really matter what you use to create your documents, XPHuddle will be able to import it without a problem. Before I do anything else, let's go over some workflow ideas. So you could use XPHuddle as your main storage hub, meaning that all project files will always be stored in XPHuddle. And if you're on a team, whoever is going to work on a project, they would now have easy access to all of those files. They would simply click on Download All and then do their work, and when they're done for the day, they can upload any new files or files that have been modified. It's not even necessary to keep them in local storage, although I really wouldn't recommend that. It's always good to have backups. And speaking of backups, I prefer to use XPHuddle as a storage backup to complement my local storage workflow. So up until now, this backup was Dropbox. But if I can use XPHuddle, then I might not even need Dropbox. At the very least, files can be backed up in both Dropbox and in XPHuddle. So let me go through a possible workflow example. On my desktop, I have my Projects folder, and in that I have a folder called Clients, and within Clients, I have 3 folders, one for each client. I'll open up the WIF folder and see what's in there. I have one item called WIF Brochure. Now, note that I would probably only store working projects here on my desktop or in my Documents folder. Once these projects are complete, I would move them to an external backup drive. Even with XPHuddle, I would still do that because the idea of a second backup sure helps me sleep at night. So inside this WIF Brochure folder, I've got 3 more folders. Working, which will contain my working files such as Photoshop, Pages, InDesign documents, etc. XPHuddle calls these types of documents source files. And another term I've used is DTP files, or desktop publishing files. And the next folder is deliverables. And these are my final files to be delivered to the client, usually just PDF files. If you're doing a lot of digital work, your deliverables could consist of GIFs, JPEGs, PNGs. And thirdly, images. These are the images that are used on my working files. So before I look into the contents of these folders, let's assume they're empty and that these are just blank folders used as a starting point for a project. So now I'm ready to actually start working on the project. Let's go back to XPHuddle, and I'm going to move to the next stage, which is called In Progress. This indicates I'm starting the project. Now, the term starting is subjective. Starting to you might mean that you're ready to work on the InDesign or Photoshop document with all of the research already done and images and assets already collected. But for me, starting means that I still have to do all the research and I still need to collect the images and assets. At this point, nothing has yet been done, and that is how we'll proceed for this workflow. So I'll click on the Next In Progress button. It asks me to confirm, and yes, I really do want to change this to In Progress. Okay, so now this project is in progress. Now I can work on the project. But before I do that, I'm just going to go back to the dashboard for a moment so we can see how this project appears on that page. I'll click on Dashboard on the left, and you can see that I have 1 total project and 1 active project. On the right, it shows that WIF is a recent client. And we can see this project in the middle under Recent Projects. It shows the stage as in progress, the due date, and the number of tasks completed, currently 0 out of 1. It also shows the progress is at 40%. Well, that's a bit misleading. All we did was add the project and move it to in progress. 99.9% of the work is still to be done. So obviously it's showing 40% as the percentage of the total number of stages. I guess that makes sense. I mean, after all, there's really no way for XPHuddle to know how long a project is going to take. Except it does. We entered a deadline. Perhaps this progress bar would serve us better if it showed the percentage of days gone by between the start date and the deadline. Now, that's more of a percentage of time used, but I think I would rather see that than see that I'm at 40% done when I really haven't done anything. I'm really not sure what would work, but I do know this needs to be improved. Okay, so back to the project. I'll just click on it in the recent list. So let's say a few days have gone by and I've collected all of the movie posters needed. That's a task item that I can mark as complete. I'll move down to that task and notice that options appear when I hover over it. I'll click on Set Complete and then confirm it, and now we have a completed task. So I'm curious how this is displayed on the dashboard. I'll click on Dashboard. It now shows that 1 of 1 task is complete. That indicator is now in green instead of red because all the tasks are complete. Progress remains at 40%, so the number of completed tasks does not affect that percentage. Let's go back to the project. Okay, so I'm at a point now where I've collected all of my movie posters. Let's add them to the project so they're backed up. I'll go down to Project Files and click on the plus button to add files. I'll go to the Finder and open my Images folder, which has the movie posters I collected. Now, I've only got 5. WIF this year is showing well over 200 movies. So I'll select the files and drag them into this drop area. XPHuddle shows me a thumbnail when possible of each file. These are all marked as pending, meaning that they're ready and waiting to be uploaded. But before uploading, you have the option to better categorize these files. There's 2 drop-down menus for each file. The top one is the type. It's set to image, which is probably what we want, but I'll click on the drop-down to see all of the available options. So we have configuration, and this is reserved for a client's configuration file, which might contain information used to connect to the client's social media advertising accounts. Next is document, which covers PDFs, text, or Word files, things of that nature. Then we have general, which is basically a miscellaneous category for anything that doesn't fit within any of the other categories. Then image, which is obviously used for images and photos. And next is source, which I mentioned earlier is reserved for DTP documents or the working files such as Photoshop or InDesign. Of course, this can also be used for HTML files if you're using an XPHuddle project to create an HTML page or a website. And then last, we have video, which is of course a video file. I would imagine you could use this for audio files as well. So we'll leave this set to image, and that covers type. Under that is asset. It's currently set to project file. I'll click on it to see what the other options are. We have comment, which, to be quite honest, I'm not really sure what that's used for, so I'll ignore it for now. Under that, we have deliverable, which is used to identify files that are delivered to the client for review and for publishing. And last is project file, which is any file used for the production of this project. All of these movie posters are project files. Okay, I think we're ready to upload. I'll click on the Start Upload button. And you can see the upload progress. When it's done, all the files have been uploaded and we're presented with a Close button indicating success, and it's safe to close this window. I'll click on the Close button and you can see that all files have been imported into XPHuddle as project files. There's still nothing in deliverables. So, moving on, let's say that some time has gone by and I've worked on the brochure, designing the whole thing, and now it's ready to be sent to the client. I've got a Pages document as my source file, and I've exported a PDF from Pages to be used as my deliverable. Let's upload these now. I'll click on the plus button again, and go back to the desktop and select the Pages document as well as the PDF file, and drag them to the drop area. So XPHuddle chooses a type based on the file type, and sometimes you have to change it. The Pages document needs to be changed to source. It's set to project file though, which is good. And looking at the PDF file, its type is set to document, which is good, but we need to change the asset from project file to deliverable since this is the PDF that we're sending to the client for review. I'll click on Start Upload. And when that's finished, I'll close it. And you can see now that we have a deliverable and the Pages document is under Project Files. So now that we have a deliverable, we're done our work and we're ready to have the client review it. Also, if you look closely, you can see this V1 for this deliverable PDF. That means version 1. This is part of the version control feature, and you'll see more of that later on. Okay, so let's send this out to the client. First, we have to move on to the next stage in the cycle. I'm going to go from in progress to review. Over in the Actions panel, it tells us exactly that. The next stage after in progress is indeed review. I'll click on that button now, and then confirm that I do want to do this. And now we're in the review stage, as you can see here. So how do I actually send this out to the client? I don't see a Send to Client button. In order to do this, I have to click on this Review Assets button. So I'll do that now. And this opens up the project review page. Hey, check out my awesome brochure, which took me a whole 2 minutes to create using Apple Pages. Clearly, I'm no graphic artist. So again, there's no Send to Client option. Instead, we have this Share Link button. I'll click on that, and this opens up a window to create the review invite. Okay, I'm just going to close this for a moment, and go back to the project using this button here. There seems to be a bit of a disconnect in the terminology. We went from the Review Assets button to the Project Review page, and from here we clicked on the Share Link button to open up the Create Review invite. Some obvious inconsistencies. In the grand scheme of things, the functionality is fine, it's just that the terms need to be cleared up to be less confusing. You've got 4 terms all meaning the same thing. Hopefully the folks at XPHuddle will straighten that out in a future update. Okay, so moving on, we're trying to send this to the client for review. Bob Smith should appear in this name list, and it does. And I've already populated the Bob Smith client with an email address so it shows up automatically when his name is selected. Next is the asset that we're sending for review. We only have the one, which is the WIF brochure. The invite expiration is automatically set, but it can be overridden if needed. After that, we have 2 options. Require email verification. If this is checked, the recipient will need to verify their email. If this is not checked, then anyone with the invite link will have access. I'm not going to bother checking that for this overview. The next option is to send the invitation by email. For the purposes of this video, I just need the link, so I won't bother sending out an email. When I click on the Save Invite button, I'll be presented with an invite link, which I can easily copy and then send over to the client. I'll click on Save Invite now, and here it displays the link. I'll click on Copy to Clipboard, and then close this window. I don't need to be on the review page anymore, so I'll go back to the project. So next, I'm going to simulate being Bob Smith, the client. I'll do that by opening up a private window so as not to interfere with my current login. So I'm Bob Smith. I got the link from XPHuddle. I would normally click on that link, but of course for this review, I'll just paste it into the browser because I already have it copied to the clipboard. And I'm presented with this XPHuddle page. My name and email look correct, so I'll press Continue. I'll close this instructional pop-up window. Note that I can always access this window later on from the Help button. So once again, I'm the client, Bob Smith. I'm viewing a limited version of XPHuddle. I only have access to this review page, also known as the proofer. I can see the image of the brochure in this window, and over on the right, we can approve it as is, or up here, I can add comments to describe any changes that are needed, or if this deliverable is undeliverable and even comments can't save it, I can click on the Reject button. But let's just say I want to request some changes. In the top center box of the brochure, it says over 250 movies. It should say over 275 movies. So I'll go up to the top right and click on Add Comment. For the text, I'll type in Change to over 275 movies. And over on the left, we have some annotation tools. I'll select the rectangle tool and draw a box around the area that is referred to by the comment. I'll click Save Comment, and now we have one change request. I also noticed that the WIF logo is missing. I'll add another comment and type in Need small version of the WIF logo at the bottom of each panel. And over to the annotation tools, this time I'll use the oval tool. I'll draw ovals over each panel of the brochure where the logo is missing. Okay, that looks pretty good. However, I almost forgot to supply the logo. Comments allow for attachments using this button right here. I'll click on it now and select the file that I want to attach, then click on Upload. I'll save the comment, and that file has now been uploaded. The top panel on the right says In 11 days. The intent is that the festival spans 11 days, so I'll add a new comment to request this change. I'll type in Change to Spanning 11 days. And for the annotation, I'll use the highlight tool and just highlight over the word In. And I'll click on Save Comment. Okay, one last thing. I want to switch the positions of these two posters. I'll add another comment, type in Switch the positions of these posters, and this time I'll use the arrow tool. I'll draw an arrow pointing to the first poster, and then another arrow pointing to the second poster. Regarding the annotations, the default color is red, but both the fill and the stroke can be changed using this palette tool. Okay, so I'll save the comment, and I think we're done. We have 4 comments here ready to be submitted. If I click through them, you can see the annotations for each comment. And now, because we've added comments, the only available action is to request changes. So I'll click on that now. It asks me to confirm. I'll click yes. And now Bob Smith's work is done, so I'll close this window. And now I'm back to me. I'll click on the dashboard, and you can see that this project is in the review stage and the progress is at 60%. I'll open the project and go down to deliverables, and we can see that this icon represents changes that have been requested. Not only is this an indicator, but it's also a button. If I click on it, it opens the project review page where I can see the requested changes. Let's make these changes now and submit a new version back to the client. I already have my Pages document open. I'll press Command-Tab to quickly switch over to Pages. Now, I already know what these changes are because I'm the one who requested them when I was pretending to be Bob. So rather than spend too much time going back and forth between Safari and Pages to see what I need to change, I'll just make these changes quickly. Okay, so I'm almost done. I just need to access the uploaded WIF logo to add to these panels. I'll go back to XPHuddle and select the second comment. I can see there's an attached file, but there's no download button here. However, if I right-click on it, I can select Save Linked File As. I'll save this to my Images folder within the Project folder. Note that this attached file is also now part of the project files. I'll just go back to the project for a second and go down to Project Files, and you can see this WIF logo at the bottom of the list. If I click on it, I can download it from this window as well. Okay, I'll just add this logo quickly to my Pages document. All right, so all the changes are done. I'll export another PDF file and just overwrite the one that's there in my Deliverables folder. And now I'm ready to upload it to XPHuddle. I'll go over to Deliverables and click on the plus button and select the new PDF file that I just created. And check this out. Because the file is the same name as the previous deliverable, it remembers the settings. It's a document and it's a deliverable, and it says here, New Version. I'll click on Start Upload, and when it's done, I'll click on Close, and look over here, it now says V2. I'll click on this asset to view the details, and on the left we can see the versions. Whichever version is selected here is the current version to be used as the deliverable. I'll leave it on version 2. Also note that at the bottom you can remove selected versions if you no longer have a need for them. So when I'm ready to send this to the client, I can do this a number of ways. I can close this window and click on the Review Assets button, or, just going back to where I was, I could also click on this Open in Proofer button, which is yet another way of saying Review Assets. It goes to the same place. So since I was already in this window, it's much simpler to click on Open in Proofer from here. I'll do that now. And I'm in the project review page again. I just want to send this back to the client for approval, so I'll click on Share Link. I'll select the name, Bob Smith, and the deliverable. I'll click on Save Invite, copy that to the clipboard, close this window, and next I'll do the whole, hey, I'm Bob Smith again. I'll paste in the link and open up this proof as Bob Smith. I'm happy with this, so I'm just going to approve it. I'll confirm the approval, and it tells me that I'm done and there's nothing else to approve, so I'll close this window, and now I'm back to me again. I'll open the project and go down to the deliverables, and notice this icon, it now indicates that this deliverable has been approved. So this is now ready to be delivered to the printer. Or if it were a digital ad, it would be ready for distribution, whether through social media accounts or maybe through Google Ad Manager, for example. So let's let XPHuddle know that it's ready to be delivered. I'll go over to the Actions panel, and the next stage after review is ready. To move it to that stage, I'll click on the Next Ready button, and the stage is now updated to Ready. In a larger company, someone else would be notified that this project has been moved to Ready, and that person would be responsible for sending the deliverable to the appropriate destination. To access the deliverable file, they could either click on Download All, or just open each deliverable and click on the download button here. When that part of the workflow is finished, we would then change the stage to complete to indicate the project is all done. I'll do that now by clicking on the Next Complete button and confirm it, and the project is done. It indicates that right here in the Actions panel. I'll switch over to the dashboard, and it tells us that this project is complete and the progress is at 100%. So there you have it, a full run-through of a project's workflow using XPHuddle. So does XPHuddle do everything it promises? For the most part, I think it does. There's a few things that I already mentioned that need to be cleaned up, none of which are showstoppers. I think if you're on a team or even a solo graphic designer and you're working on more than one job at a time, you can benefit from the kind of workflow that XPHuddle offers. To me, the best part about XPHuddle is how easy it is for your clients to review or proof a deliverable. There's no need to rely on a third-party product, it's all built in. I've also spoken with the developers, and there are more features planned for 2026 to better compete with other productivity tools. So that's it for today. I hope you found this interesting and useful. My name's John Martins. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode of Apple a Day.